Number 25. That's a that's a lot of me talking, but welcome. Um, Glad you could make it. And we have a lot of questions. We got a lot of questions this time. For those of you who are new or are listening brand new to the podcast, welcome. So these podcasts are a little different. Usually I have guests of all shapes and sizes coming on to the podcast, but these are different in that I ask listeners to send questions, and it can be on any topic, anything. And sometimes I just get random fun questions that people ask me. And then other times I get deeper questions. And for whatever reason, this time I got a lot of deeper questions. So that's kind of fun. Um, some of them are more fun to answer than others, but try to answer everybody's honestly as I can. Some of these I have read before. Some of them I glanced through them but didn't read them on purpose, so that way I can give an authentic, open, honest answer. And so, yeah, that's the format. For those of you who want to submit questions, you can do so on all of the social media that we have. I say we as if there's more than just me involved. It literally is just me. I'm doing everything on this podcast. So you can follow the Edlow podcast on Facebook at Edlow Podcast. You can follow on Instagram at Edlow_podcast. And you can follow on TikTok at J Edlow. I think that's it. And those are the three main ones. I am on Twitter, but I don't, or X or whatever you call it now. I'm not really big on that. And then, of course, you can always, send me an email, or you can put a comment in on our YouTube channel, which is where we get a lot of subscribers. So anyway, those are the options. You can send your questions there, and we will read them on the air. Everything is anonymous. I don't report anybody on here, even though some of them are just comments that are made on the posting saying that we're looking for questions. But like I said, I'm really grateful. These ones a lot more deeper questions. So let's just get into them. That's enough chatting for me. Let's start with the first one. Hey, Josh, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out because my son has been wrestling. I see what you did there. Wrestling with a pretty big decision. And I thought you might have some perspective that could really help him. He has a testimony of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and believes in it. But he also has a lot of other things he's passionate about and wants to pursue. On top of that, he has some pretty significant college opportunities in front of him that I'd rather not share publicly just to keep his anonymity. Right now, he's genuinely unsure what to do. Part of him feels pulled towards serving a mission, while another part of him wonders whether he should pursue some of these other opportunities first. I know how much you loved your mission, and I also know you have a son serving right now, so I figured you might have some thoughts or experiences you'd be willing to share. He respects you a lot, and I think hearing an honest perspective from someone he looks up to could really mean something to him. No pressure at all. I just thought I'd ask. Thanks again, and I appreciate you taking time to read this. So, for those of you who are not, uh, for those of you who are not familiar with the vernacular, so in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, um, the I guess the lay term or the stereotype term is Mormon, LDS, whatever you want to call us. We go at the age of 18 now on a 2-year mission, and the women also go at 18 or 18 for 18 months, and and so there is an idea out there that's been there since as long as I can remember that every worthy young man should serve a mission. And so there is a lot of pressure in the church to serve, and a lot of people do. And so, so I appreciate the question, and you do have to sacrifice quite a bit to go on a mission. For those of you who don't know, a missionary literally leaves his family and everything behind and serves 100% of their time in the mission field. My son currently is serving in the Peru Trujillo South mission. He's currently in the mountains out there, and been out for next week will be a year, and so that's pretty exciting. So he's having a great time out there, and they go throughout the whole world, and they give up a lot, not just their education or other things they want to do, but they don't watch TV, they don't listen to the radio, they don't date. They are allowed to call home on holidays and once a week on their preparation day, which is the only day they have off from their missionary work. And they're literally from 6:30 or 7, whatever time they wake up, depending on the mission, till the time they go to bed, they are 100% doing missionary work. So it is quite a sacrifice. And not only is it a sacrifice, but it is very hard work. And a lot of people, they have to make this decision. They have to make the decision on whether or not they're going to pursue their own personal goals. I know I've spoken with kids very close to me who said, "Hey, that feels like it would put me behind on some of the things that I want to do," and that's certainly true, right? You're taking 2 years off to serve the Lord, so that puts you 2 years behind all your classmates who go right into college. Um, uh, so let me start by well, that was the start, but let me say, you caught me at a great time because today is literally 26 years since I entered the NTC to the day. So that's pretty exciting. Um, and I view that decision to go on a mission as a great turning point in my life. It was a life-changing experience for me. For spiritually, it anchored me. It anchored me to a standard, of living. It anchored me in my morals. Not to say that I'm perfect or that I always keep to my moral standard, but or that I have, always adhered well, I always have had adhered to the best of my ability, but, not perfect, but I have a standard, and I try to live by that standard. But also just logistically, there were a lot of things that I learned. You learn how to live with people of different personalities, different faiths, different backgrounds. You get an opportunity to live amongst people you otherwise wouldn't meet. You get an opportunity to converse with people who have different life experiences. If you go foreign, you learn a foreign language. You live in a different culture. I can tell you I lived in Indiana for 2 years, and like I said, it was life changing. To be able to put other people and literally serve others for 2 years, not thinking of yourself, but thinking of everybody else is some of the greatest stuff you can ever do. Gives you a lot of opportunity to pray, to study, to ask yourself what you really believe, to really contemplate those things. And then it also gives you a lot of opportunity to meet people and say, "Hey, what do I wanna do?" I can tell you that one of the things that forged my decision to become a lawyer was serving, in South Bend, on the Notre Dame campus. And while I was there, I met several, of the law students at Notre Dame, and I saw the way they interacted with others. I saw the way that they thought it, the way that they communicated, and I saw the way that they lived their lives. And I said, that's what I wanted to be. Um, Also, it doesn't hurt to have Patrick Mason, who holds the Leonard Arrington Chair over at Utah State, church historian, as your ward mission leader. So that was helpful too. But so there's a lot of great benefits, both spiritually and logistically, to going on a mission. But I think the biggest one is learning that there's something greater than yourself out there, and learning to serve and love other people who you otherwise wouldn't know. I know that one of the things that was so interesting and fascinating to me about going on a mission was it was really hard to go out there. One of the hardest things I ever did. I remember getting on the plane and literally being sick to my stomach and being like, "What am I doing?" Because I was not my intention to go on a mission. If you had asked me a year before if that's what I was going to do, it was no. I was actually going to go out to Pennsylvania to join the Wild Samoan Training Center and become a professional wrestler and tour the world with the WWE and run away with the circus. Right? That was my plan. Um, But, so going out there was real hard for me. Leaving everybody behind was really hard for me. But what was fascinating to me was how much harder it was to come home. How much I loved the people there, people I still talk to. You know, my last mission companion just recently texted me, and he reminded me of something, and I was really grateful for it. It was because it was in a kind of a rougher moment, I was having. He texted me, we're both gospel doctrine teachers, and he texted me on I think it was Saturday before church, and he goes, "Hey, Josh, I just wanna let you know, teaching gospel doctrine tomorrow." He goes, "And I was going to tell them how in your last week on your mission, you told me that we were gonna cut all the fluff out of the discussions and get to the most important principles and teach as much as we can because you knew you were gonna be going home in a week, and you wanted to touch as many people as you could before you left." And I did not remember that. I did not remember that when he shared it, and it started coming back to me, and I started realizing, I was like, "Man, that, it reminded me of what was most important to me." And so, I would tell anybody if they asked me and they said, "Hey, I'm deciding whether I should go on a mission or pursue my own personal interests," I would tell them to go on a mission and don't delay. Um, uh, I had some success baptizing. I got an opportunity to serve in leadership at a rather young, time in my mission, so I got an opportunity to really learn how to lead and inspire people. But I think the most important thing was I was able to convert myself to the gospel and gain a strong testimony of it, which has, as I've said already, anchored me in some very difficult times. You know, um, the fact of the matter is, and you're going to see in some of the questions that come here later tonight, today in this podcast tonight, really in this podcast late tonight in this podcast, um, life does not always go the way you plan. In fact, it almost never goes the way you plan. And I can tell you that in my hardest moments, I drew on the experiences I had on my mission and spiritual experiences after that to anchor me and keep me grounded in times when I could have flailed. So, and I can also tell you the other thing I would say about this is watching my son grow every single week. I used to make fun of the missionaries because they had to talk to mommy and daddy every single week. But I can tell you as a dad, I got to talk to my son for half the day, uh, last time I spoke with him. Um, and to sit there and watch him and hear him talk about the gospel and the things that he's thinking about, the questions that he's asking, the studying that he's doing, asking the questions that he's asking, thinking about what he wants in his life. I can tell you, I've seen him grow up from a boy to a man, and it's amazing to see. So, yeah, dude, um, it's not a sacrifice, it's an investment. It's an investment in your future that will make you a better husband, a better father, a better human being. So go, my man, go. All right. Uh, how do you feel about the Kings getting the 7th pick in the draft? Oh, I have so many feelings about that. I have so many feelings about that. Ugh, man, what a bummer. What a bummer. Um, Luckily, this is a good draft, right? This is a good, the draft class is strong. I'm hearing, I have some friends who, just by virtue of being at the arena all the time, I've gained some friends who in the press, and I've even had a couple people on the podcast. And everything I'm hearing just tangentially is that the Kings are pretty interested in Darius Acuff Jr., who's a point guard out of, I think, can't remember where he's from, but um, pretty impressive scorer. A little concerning because his defense is not quite up to snuff, and neither is most of the Sacramento Kings. Um, but it's interesting when you think about it. This last year the Kings were dreadful. They were awful. It stunk up the court. It was really hard to watch. I mean, especially being there every night. It was really painful. really painful. I've been a season ticket holder for I don't even know how many years now, 8 or 9 years probably, and, this was by far the hardest year to watch, and it sucks because they had so many, I mean, on paper, great players, but they were never playing together because everybody was injured. So I don't know. I mean, if you get, you get Demonis Sabonis, Keegan Murray, what's his name? The guy they just picked up. Oh, what is his name? Small forward they just picked up from the Cavs. His name is escaping me right now. And then you get, you got DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine and Darius Acuff Jr., and then you have Neat Clifford and uh, what's his name? The French guy from Stanford. I don't know why it's late, man. But yeah, I mean, maybe they do good. Max Reynaud, that's the other center who really got kind of snubbed this year. And that's another thing that I'm really kind of excited about is, our draft classes last year um between all the rookies we have this year and some of the two ways we picked up, there's a lot to be excited about. Max Reynaud, getting him in the second round. I mean, he was uh second team all rookie team. Should have been first, really. He was, sixth in voting. So, Nick Clifford is really great. Dylan Cardwell, he's developing as well. We got a lot of really good, um, we got a lot of really good things to be excited about, but it is the Kings, so we'll see. Um, so yeah, appreciate the question. What's your favorite restaurant that you go to in Sacramento? And what's your favorite restaurant of all time? And what made it your favorite restaurant? Uh, okay, so I think so they're the same. All right, I'm gonna name 2 restaurants just because you had 2 different questions. So, one of my favorite restaurants to go to in Sacramento, okay, actually, I'm gonna name 3. So, the first one is the Squeeze In, which has amazing burgers. It was on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Unfortunately, there's only one left in Roseville, but, there used to be one right down the street from my office, and they made these cheese skirts, so these giant burgers with this cheese skirt that went around it, that they had fried the cheese on the grill. They would have this crunch, and man, we used to love going there. Me and the kids used to like going there, and I remember I just looked at a memory on Facebook where Piper and I went down there and we ate together, and then we came back and both fell asleep on the couch when she was like 7. That burger was about as big as her head. So that's a good one. Chando's Tacos is amazing. Love Chando's as well. And then I think though my favorite nostalgia one that's still open is Mark and Monica's in Carmichael. It's right down the street from my house growing up. It's fantastic pizza. And I just think it's probably a nostalgia thing, but it really is good pizza. It's akin to Mountain Mike's, but better. So yeah, the pepperoni there is just really good, but everything that they make is good. And it's just like a hole in the wall. I think they have 2 locations, but there's really one in off of Manzanita. So if you're in Sacramento and you haven't been there, which almost everybody has, you got to check that out. Okay. All right. Here's a question for you that has come up in discussion recently. When looking for your person, is it better to wait for someone who ticks all the boxes and remain alone till you find them, or choose someone that is a good human but isn't quite everything you're looking for? I have my thoughts, but yours would be interesting. I mean, there is no perfect person, right? So I don't. It's kind of a hard question to answer because I don't know what you mean. If you mean like literally every single thing that ticks off your box, like you're going to be alone because there's just nobody out there. If you got somebody who hits 85% of what you need, um, I would say lock them down. And I think the most important thing is finding the person who you can communicate with, that you can laugh with, that you can have good times with, that you are connected spiritually, you're connected physically, connected emotionally. and someone that you can live with their faults. Um, everybody's going to have something that you 5, 10, 20 years down the road, you look at and you go, oh man, wish that, wish that wasn't there, but you can live with it. Right. So hopefully that answers your question. All right. Hey, Josh, I wanted to get your take on something that's been wearing on me for a while now. I have someone in my life close enough that I can't just cut them off, but I'm starting to feel like I'm going crazy trying to deal with them. Anytime there's an issue, it somehow gets flipped back on me. If I bring up something that hurt me, I end up being the one apologizing. If they messed up, there's always a reason, an excuse, or a way to make it about something I did. It's like nothing is ever their responsibility. What's been messing with me the most is how convincing they are. They don't come off defensive, they come off certain, like they genuinely believe their version of things. And after enough conversations like that, I start second guessing myself and wondering if I'm the problem. I've tried approaching things calmly. I've tried being direct. I've tried letting things go. Nothing really changes. It just resets and happens again the next time. At what point do you stop trying to fix it or explain yourself? And how do you deal with someone who seems unwilling or maybe unable to look in the mirror and take accountability? I don't want to become bitter or shut down, but I also don't want to keep feeling like this. Would love your perspective. Ooh, okay. Well, first, I want to give you some credit. Um, because the fact that you're even asking if it is you, if you might be the problem, puts you miles ahead of a lot of people. And I think most therapists would probably say that if you're asking that question, you're probably not the problem because the problem most of the time never stops long enough to ask if they're the problem, let alone sit with it and really contemplate it. Right. Um, I don't know your situation very well or at all. Well, that sounds like gaslighting to me. Now, that's a word I got to tell you, I'm not particularly fond of these days. I think it gets thrown around a little too much. But if you are in a situation where you are literally questioning your reality because of the way that they're handling it, that might be what's happening. So now there are people out there who will, you got to understand, there are people out there who will literally say or do almost anything to avoid looking in the mirror. And I don't mean that as like an insult. I mean that as a fact. I mean that as a reality. Some people simply are just not willing or able to take accountability for whatever reason. Maybe it's a childhood trauma thing where they were living in a situation where they couldn't take accountability for fear of rejection or losing a relationship or whatever. But for some people, it literally feels like a threat. It's not growth. So instead of owning their part, they deflect, they justify, they shame, and then they just project it back on you. That's the game. It's you're the problem. That's not what happened. You did this, but you did things too. They're not interested in resolution. It's not about truth. It's all about avoidance. So the reason it feels so disorienting is because you are in good faith actually trying to have a conversation with somebody. You're trying to resolve something, but you're going to have to accept that they're not playing the same game. They're not doing the same thing. They are trying to escape, and that's it. And so, even if you get them to sit there, you get them to sit there and actually have the conversation, the quote unquote conversation, it's really not a conversation at all. For those of you who are in audio land, I was literally using air quotes when I used the term conversation. It's not about that at all. You'll just end up explaining, you'll clarify, you'll soften, you'll change your tone, the words, the time of day. You'll you'll do all these things and you'll just get that's not what happened. Your tone was bad. You did things too. You're mischaracterizing me. I'm starting to feel sick. It's all part of the game. You aren't playing, but they are. So here's the shift. Once you recognize that pattern, your goal cannot be anymore to get them to see it. They won't. It will never happen. Because if they were willing to see it, if they were willing to have the conversation, they already would have had it. You would have already moved towards a resolution and you would already be seeing progress. Instead, you have to focus on yourself. You have to focus on your clarity. You have to focus on your reality and not let them move you. So you don't need to over explain yourself. You don't need to over explain your feelings. You don't have to, you know, you don't have to explain to someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. You don't need to accept blame just to keep the peace. You don't have to carry both sides of the accountability. So you can just calmly stand your ground and just say, no, this is what I experienced, and just leave it there. And whether they accept it or not is of no consequence. It doesn't change the validity of your experience at all. So, and uh, one more thing, don't confuse the certainty with truth. Some people can gaslight with incredible confidence and still completely be unwilling to be honest with themselves. So, you know what happened to you, stay grounded in that, stay focused on your growth, and don't let someone else's avoidance rewrite your reality. You're not crazy, you're just dealing with someone who is, right? And that's the sad part, is that the avoidance is so much harder than just dealing with it. So, anyway, appreciate the question. Um, what was the experience in your life that made you feel like you were truly a grown man? Still don't even know if I'm a grown man. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. um, Probably having a kid. I mean, um, once Austin came, I remember when the first time that, like, I was alone with him, like, really, like, it was, like, just us, and I was like, "Oh, man, I gotta keep this baby alive. Someone gave me a baby," you know? And I was like, I think that was the first time where I really felt like, "Yeah, I'm not playing anymore. This is legit." So, um, but what a great experience and what life-changing experience. I was just talking about this, and I think I've said this in a podcast before. It's a little off topic, but indulge me. So, uh, I remember, when my second Piper was born, I remember I loved Austin so much. I just had such a great relationship with him, and part of it was because um, he w he was growing up in a time, there was, like, a little bit of time, a semester where I graduated college, but I didn't start law school till the next fall. So I had, like, I wanna say I had, like, 8 or 9 months where all I was doing was working full time. And so I had a lot more time when he was a baby than the others, when they were born, because the other ones were born during law school or in my first or second year of practice. So I had, like, a really great time, and I just loved this kid to death. I mean, he just was the best baby, and the best, like, little toddler. And so I remember when Piper was about to be born, I remember thinking to myself, and this just sounds so silly now, but I remember thinking to myself, I remember going like, "How am I gonna love this kid as much as I love Austin?" Like, I only have so much love to give. Like, how now I'm gonna have to split the love between 2 kids, and I don't know if that's fair to either one of them. And then Piper was born, and I immediately realized, I was like, "Oh, it expands. Got it." So, like, I didn't have to split the love, it just grew. and I thought that was pretty awesome. So, anyway, so having a kid. All right, what's a hobby that you love to do that you don't tell a lot of people about? I don't think I have any weird hobbies that I don't tell people about. I think I've been pretty clear about my weird hobbies. Uh, between pro wrestling, trashy reality TV, silly horror movies like Evil Dead and Velocipaster, I think I've made my weird hobbies pretty clear in the almost 200 podcasts I've done. So yeah, but those, I mean, if you haven't heard, those are some of the weird ones. Um, anyhow, okay. Um, do you love the symphony? And if so, what's your favorite orchestra piece? Yeah, I'm not a big symphony guy. I mean, I like it. I played in the band. I played trombone from seventh grade on to senior year, and had a good time with the band. I've often said um, I hung out with a lot of different groups. I played basketball, so I hung out with jocks. I hung out with religious friends. I hung out with um, various groups, and I would tell you that nobody was crazier than the band kids. So had a great time with them. We played um, we played a piece called Mazama that I really enjoyed playing. It was like a Native American piece. Really had a good time with that. But as far as like sitting and listening to a symphony, I just not a big fan. So, okay, what's a tradition you and your family did growing up that you continue to do with your kids? I would say the biggest tradition is my family on December 23rd at around Christmas time. We well, let me back up. So when I was a kid, we would always go to my grandparents for Christmas. And my dad wanted to have our own Christmas. So what we would do, since we would spend Christmas Eve staying the night at my grandma's um and have Santa Claus appear, on Christmas Day at their house. On December 23rd, we would stay the night at our house. We would go to McDonald's for dinner, and then we would go look at Christmas lights on the 23rd through the 24th. Or we would go to sleep on the 23rd, and then Santa would make a special trip to our house on the 24th. And so now, we still do that. We still do that with my parents, my kids' grandparents. My kids do the 23rd with grandma and grandpa, and then we do our own Christmas Day. So so yeah, that's our big one. That's probably the biggest tradition that we've moved on. Okay, so now somebody sent me a video. I'm gonna try to pull this up here. I am still not super technically sound. If somebody wants to tell me how I can do this better, um, please do. So this is a another clip from a podcast, um, and someone asked me if I would comment on it. So I'm going to play the sound. Hopefully, this works, and then tell you my response. This has to do. This is don't know their names offhand. There was a documentary done on two women who were both LDS and were married in the temple to men and then met each other and realized that they were lesbians, same sex attracted, whatever you want to call it, and left their husbands and got married. And they did a documentary on their experience dealing with their sexual orientation within the LDS church. And so there is now a member of the church named Charlie Bird, who is married to a man. They're gay, and He participates in church. These two left the church. I'm not quite clear if they left the church or they were excommunicated from the church. I'm not sure, but they left the church in some fashion. And Charlie Bird and his husband have remained in the church and have a pretty large social media following. And he talks about being gay and married within the LDS faith. And this is one of the women's thoughts on Charlie Bird. So see if we can do this.
I just wanted to say something about Charlie Bird and Ben Shalati's. They are preaching from these big platforms that it's okay to be Mormon and gay and that it's a safe environment for them. When we all know, especially those of us who are on the other side, that it couldn't be further from the truth. Every time there's a general conference, they confirm to us how unsafe it is for gay people. What Charlie Bird is doing, I think it is so harmful to the queer community, especially those who are children and looking up to him as an example, like, oh, I can be gay and I can stay. I don't remember that.
Okay. So that's her view. And I just want to make sure I understand this and get this straight because I had a lot of feelings on this. So she uses her social media platform to influence behavior and shape the minds of LGBTQ youth. But Charlie Bird shouldn't. People within the LGBTQ community can use podcasts, reels, TikToks, interviews, social media platforms to sway public opinion and advocate for their beliefs. But only the beliefs that align with hers or the mainstream LGBTQ narrative, right? So Charlie Bird's views are dangerous because he encourages people who want to remain in the LDS church and reconcile their faith with their sexuality. Those views are dangerous, but her views are somehow not dangerous as maybe the LGBTQ kids who may feel spiritually lost, emotionally conflicted, or maybe deeply unsettled by abandoning their closely held religious beliefs that have shaped their entire lives. That's not dangerous. It seems to me like she is assuming that everyone within the LGBTQ community thinks and believes exactly the same way she does, or has the same experience that she does, or has the same relationship with the church that she does. Who is she to tell Charlie Bird what he should or should not do with his faith or his platform? Now, I watched that documentary, and what struck me was how deeply hurt she was when people judged her for the decision to leave her husband and her faith to marry her wife. And she openly talked about the pain of feeling unsupported by her mission president because she had served a mission in the church and the others around her. And she asked people to stop judging her path and her choices. And now she's doing the exact same thing to Charlie Bird because he chose a different path. And, maybe so talking directly to her, maybe you found the church to be unsafe. And I respect that your experiences led you to feel that way. I do. But there are many others who genuinely find safety, peace, belonging, purpose, uh, and spirituality within the faith. What about those people? What about LGBTQ members who still want to practice their religion and maintain a relationship with God and the church? So you consistently use your platform to criticize the church and people like me who hold the religious beliefs deeply and sincerely. That's absolutely your right. But what, Charlie Bird can't use his platform to encourage people who want to stay? He can't speak to people trying to reconcile their faith and sexuality without being labeled dangerous? He can't be someone who's at the forefront of maybe encouraging policy changes? You know, does this only work in one direction? That's not inclusion. That's that's ideological gatekeeping. And the idea that everybody in the LGBTQ community must arrive at the exact same conclusion about faith and sexuality and spirituality in the church is unhealthy groupthink. You, and that's dangerous no matter who it comes from. It pressures conformity and it punishes people who don't follow the approved narrative. So some people leave the church for various reasons, including members of the LGBTQ community and those who support them, and I assume that they find peace by doing that, and some stay, and I assume that they find peace, and some struggle. There's somewhere in the middle, and all of those experiences are real and valid. So Charlie Bird choosing to live in accordance with what he believes is best for him and his family is not dangerous. He has every right to use his platform to advocate for his beliefs and experiences just as anybody else does. And as someone who sincerely hopes that, you know, I hope that the church continues finding ways to be more loving and understanding and inclusive. I'm grateful for Charlie Bird's uh, uh, example. You know, I whether people agree with every conclusion he reaches or not, I think he's doing great work within our church. And so I think if we're going to be inclusive, we need to be inclusive of people who have different journeys and not just the ones that mirror our own. So, anyhow, all right, that was a lot. So, all right, here's another whammy. Um, why don't you like Donald Trump? All right, so I don't know how many of my listeners are gonna like this. I got a lot of flat earthers too, so they're probably not gonna like this one either. But yeah, I didn't vote for Donald Trump. I never have. He's been in 3 elections. I've never voted for him. Now, I'll also say I've never voted for his opponent either. I've always written somebody in. Um, so what don't I like about Donald Trump? Well, let's start first with the principle of the thing. So I'm going to go back to the 90s. Pretty young, I felt like I was politically inclined. I do actually have a government major, a political science major, but it was called government when I got it in Sac State. And I've always been pretty interested in politics. And I remember when Donald Trump got in, or not Donald Trump, I'm sorry, Bill Clinton in the 90s got in trouble for getting a blowjob from Monica Lewinsky. And I remember coming to church the next week and people were talking about how terrible of a president he was and how he needed to be impeached and all of these things. And I remember asking the question, what does him getting a BJ from another woman have to do with his effectiveness as a president? And the answers I got was, well, it's not about that. It's about the morality of the situation. It's about the principle. And I accepted that. I accepted that. Um, and so now it's been very interesting to see how many of those people who I respect still to this day, when it comes to Donald Trump, he gets a pass. This is a guy who undoubtedly cheated on his wife with a porn star and paid her off to keep it quiet. This is clearly a man who has said pretty horrific and derogatory things about women, including bragging about how he could, if he wanted to, just, you know, sexually assault them or, um, or, can walk into women's locker rooms and nobody says anything because he's a celebrity. He's had multiple allegations against him, multiple lawsuits against him for such things. Um, he has said some of the most horrific things to people. Um, and I don't think there's even a Trump supporter out there who wouldn't acknowledge that the things that he says is wrong. And most of my friends would say, well, yeah, he says things on Twitter. I wish he wouldn't do the mean tweets or whatever, but I believe in his policies. I'm just somebody who I just believe that, yeah, the president is also the moral leader of the country. And so, I just couldn't look my daughters in the eye and tell them, "Yeah, I voted for Donald Trump," you know? Um, now let's go back to what I just said, policy over principle. So policy. Let me just say there are some things, and I'll be the first to acknowledge, even though I never voted for Donald Trump. There are some things in policy that I actually, I've actually liked. I agree with some of his policies, but and mind you, like I said, I'm a government major, right? I'm a political science major. I've studied international relations. I've studied different political systems, election cycles. One of the things I do enjoy about Donald Trump is he has completely upended the status quo. And I also want to point out that I do believe that Donald Trump is probably almost certainly going to be considered the most consequential president of our lifetime. He has completely changed the game of politics. He has completely changed the world economic system. Even just his uh, his his use of tariffs uh, will shape American foreign economic policy for decades to come. He's done numerous things that experts used to say couldn't be done, and he's shown that they can. So it's also shaped the way that elections are ran. He was the first one to go on podcasts. Now everybody's on podcasts. Some of them have podcasts. And so, yeah, I mean, he's definitely consequential, but policy over principle. One of the things that I find really fascinating about conservatives, I consider myself a conservative, by the way, probably a moderate conservative, but a conservative. Um, is that the 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 presidents most closely related to greatness within the Republican Party were actually Democrats. The two in my lifetime that everyone looks at as the greatest presidents of all time are Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. Neither one of them were Republicans. They were Democrats. Neither one of them was actually conservative. You don't believe me? Let's talk about some of the things that Ronald Reagan did. Immigration amnesty in 1986. So he signed the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986, granted amnesty and legal status to 3 million undocumented immigrants. Our national debt increased by three times, tripled it during the 8 years that he was president. Federal spending rose significantly. Most of it was military spending because of the Cold War. Raised taxes multiple times. Um, he expanded federal government in many areas, supported gun control. And for all of you Christian nationalists out there who say that, oh, all the women are getting divorced because of no fault divorce, guess where that started? California. When? 1969. Who signed it into law? Ronald Reagan. So that disintegration of the family that you blame on all the women who were out there filing for divorces because of no fault divorce, your boy Ronald Reagan's the one that started all that. So, so yeah. Now, let's talk about Donald Trump. So the debt is bigger than it's ever been. They were rising significantly before COVID, and after COVID, it's been even worse. Tariffs, right? I mean, if you talk to free trade conservatives, tariffs are no good. I'm actually not a big. I'm not opposed to the tariff, but regardless, uh, support for gun laws, for red flags. He's expanded executive power like crazy. I mean, this guy is not a conservative by any means. Oh, let's talk about starting wars like in Iran and kidnapping presidents in the middle of the night. He's not a conservative. Now, you may not care if he's a conservative, but I'm just saying that when you're talking about conservative, well, I like his policy. I want you to tell me, what policy exactly do you like? Just getting rid of all the Mexicans? Is that what it is? Or is there something else that you really like? Or do you just like that he sticks it to the liberals? I don't know. But so you ask why I don't like Donald Trump. That's why. I don't believe he's a conservative, and I don't necessarily believe he's a great person. Now, I've never met him. Maybe I meet him and I change my mind. But as of right now, that's my opinion. So, all right. Let's go with a lighter one. When you've had a hard day and you need to just relax, what do you do to chill? Um, Typically, I just watch sports or watch trashy reality TV or just watch a movie. I love the 80s and 90s, so I watch old stuff. I go to sleep binging The Office, honestly. Uh, I've ran through that 100 times. I don't know why. That and sometimes I'll bring Parks and Rec in. That's another one, but The Office is the one that gives me the most comfort. Um, okay, here's another big one. We had a lot of these today, guys. I need more ginger ale. All right. Um, I've been listening to your podcast for a while now, and honestly, oh wait, no, that's not the right one. Um, let me let me get this one together. Okay, we'll do that one last. We'll do this one now. So this is an interesting question. I don't know. Hopefully, I got this right. Um, Josh, I have a very thought provoking question. This is one I asked my bishop, and he was stumped. I'll try to articulate, and please have patience with me here. I've never been able to get any definitive answer about this. This is a scenario I've spoken publicly about, but now it's actually happened to me, where I finally found the person I want to create a future with, but it's incredibly difficult for many reasons, especially the distance. Here's the dilemma. Two people have been dating for a long while, both very clear on what they want, both very interested in finding a partner, building a life, and having a meaningful courtship and marriage. Due to circumstances being as they are, two people living in different cities and not able to meet up as frequently as possible, both people knowing that they feel home with each other and have good spiritual and emotional connections, having all the difficult conversations, having all the green flags, each person is financially stable and has adult children. There are two minor children in the picture. Here is the dilemma. Both people want to be sealed in the temple one day. Both want to get married to each other, but one of them isn't ready to go to the temple yet. Both people see the importance and impact of chastity. One of the people doesn't want to lose temple blessings and integrity of going to the temple. My question is paradoxical. Is it better for these two to elope secretly and continue to grow and nurture their relationship in a healthy way, not sharing this information with their families and children until the time is right, making temple prep possible and keeping covenants possible, or consistently trying and failing to not be physically affectionate, having guilt, shame, and distracting from the precious time they have together, and continuing a long distance relationship? Or continue to have a healthy, nourishing, mentally, physically, and spiritual relationship without the temple and not upholding law of chastity, aka not having the spiritual guidance to have wisdom in the relationship. It seems completely paradoxical to be able to form a meaningful relationship from a distance with minor children involved and keep the law of chastity. It's not only stifling, but almost unproductive and counterintuitive. Not just that, being congruent is important, and that's the issue. I've heard the argument be made that this makes a mockery of marriage, but honestly, with vengeful exes and minor children involved, having a public marriage is really hard. It's my instinct that to protect the relationship and the integrity of each person, wouldn't it be better to secretly elope and plan a wedding months down the road when things can be handled better? Many people do not agree with this, but I'm genuinely seeing that having a public marriage has 0 point because ultimately you're both committed and wanting that private commitment between you without side criticism and judgment, also keeping in alignment with your values. The only difference between having a public marriage would be that it would be easier to put your spouse first when there are commitments and interruptions in plans, but that could also happen with certain boundaries between them. Okay. So my first question was, I don't get why you can't just have a long distance public marriage. It sounds like it's just because vengeful exes would cause a problem and it might affect your minor children in some way. And there would be some judgments about that. Regardless, we'll just accept for the sake of this argument that that is not a possibility and just go with what you said. So it seems to me, just so I'm trying to make sure I understand exactly what the question is, it seems like how do you honor your spiritual values and your emotional reality when the practical realities of your adult life make the values incredibly hard to live? And there's seems to be a bunch of different questions entangled in there, like you're trying to reconcile your covenants with love, um, and questioning kind of whether the traditional process even works because the traditional process is that you date, courtship, get married, either civilly or in the temple. But for whatever reason, that's not possible for you. So, um, I don't see why this might be sound like a dodge to your question, but I'm going to say it anyway. I don't think it really matters what anybody thinks other than you. So my thought is if I'm praying about it and I say to myself, you know what? The best way for me to honor my covenants and move this marriage forward to the person I want to be with, who I am entangled with, who I do love and who I do want to be married with, and I want to have that temple marriage, and the only way I can do it is to be married, but doing it publicly would cause more problems than and would stifle our ability to grow into the marriage that we want to grow into. Then I, through prayer and with my partner, would make that decision and wouldn't question what anybody else wants. And I don't know if that's what you're even asking, if that even matters to you. Um, but it sounds like what you're saying is doing it this way would shield you from in your relationship from chaos, avoid interference from your exes and weird family dynamics. It would preserve peace for your minor children, and it would create a commitment where you guys can learn and grow and eventually get married in the temple. My question for you is when you get married in the temple, is the distance still going to be an issue? Um, so and quite frankly, maybe getting married privately is more sacred and more stable and more aligning with your values. So, um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tension there. I think that I don't know what I would say would be better. I mean, I think if the only way that you can, if you know, let me, how do I put this the right way? If you know that this is the person you want to marry, for sure, no question, and this is who you want to spend your life with, but you don't know how to get to the temple and you want to protect the covenants that you want to make, and one of you struggling with temple covenants, and the other one is temple worthy and you guys don't want to make mistakes, but you know you want to get married, then I'm all for it. I don't think there's any judgment in doing that. There's a lot of ways to make this work. So, um, yeah, I mean, I think a private marriage with honest commitment is more spiritually healthy than an ongoing relationship where it's just a bunch of guilt and inconsistency. So, anyway, yeah. So, uh, yeah, I'm hoping I'm getting that right. I think if I am, the I think the real thing here, if a, would be how do I put this? The real question should not be, is the secret marriage the best route, or is the secret marriage right or wrong? I think the question to ask is, what path creates the most integrity, peace, and honesty and stability and closest to God for everyone involved? And if doing the private marriage civilly first and working towards the temple is the thing that creates that best for you, I'm all for it. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, send me a message and I'll try again next month. Anyhow, okay, we are getting to the end, guys. A lot of whew, a lot of hard ones. I think we're at the last question here. All right. I've been listening to your podcast for a while now, and I uh, appreciate that I can say this to you. I know I appreciate. I feel as though I can say this to you. I'm a dad. I'm trying to make all this work. I'm trying to do right by my family, be a good husband, provide, lead, protect, and somehow keep everything together all at the same time. But the truth is, sometimes it just gets really hard. I get down more than I admit. I struggle more than people probably realize. Someday I feel like I'm carrying a weight I can't explain, and I don't even know how to talk about it because I feel like I'm not allowed to fall apart. My wife sometimes tells me I'm not helping enough, and I understand why she feels that way. But the truth is, I think I'm struggling internally more than anyone sees, and I don't really know how to admit that out loud without feeling weak or like I'm failing everybody. As a man, and especially as a father, I feel like I have to be the leader no matter what. I feel like if I stop pushing, if I slow down, if I let people see how exhausted I really am, then everything falls apart. So I keep going. I wake up tired. I push through the day, trying to hold everything together, and then lay awake at night wondering if I'm doing anything right. I guess my question is simple. Does it ever get better? Ooh, you guys are coming with some fire. You really, you caught me on the, you caught me on the wrong day for this one. Or maybe the right day. I don't know. Uh, I mean, it's like midnight over here right now, and I'm recording a freaking podcast because it's the only time I can fit it in. So I feel you. I feel you. Um, boy, how do I answer this without opening the door to too much personal stuff? Um, I heard this quote from James E. Faust: "The Lord shapes the back to bear the burden placed upon it." So the truth is, we all hit moments where life feels heavier than we can really carry, right? Where we feel like everything's stacked against us, or we start to wonder maybe this one's too big even for God. Like, and maybe it happens after you've seen God carry you through every single time. Um, I've had those moments. I've had many of those moments. And you're right, it's not like you can show your worry. You can't show your anxiety, it's not like you can break down and cry. The mental health people or the ladies out there might say, "Oh, it's okay for you to show your emotions," but, you know, not true, right? Not really. I mean, you're the head of the household. You're the leader, you're the general. And you've got to be stalwart. You got to have a stiff upper lip. You've got to have shoulders that are broader to carry the weight of it all. So, does it get better? I I don't know. It's complicated. Life is complicated, and it doesn't seem to get less complicated as you get older. Uh, Here's the reality. You just have a choice. You have a choice in this moment. You can come undone or you can come alive. Um, in my life, I have found that it is possible to have the best and worst years of your life at the exact same time. And if you let fear and anger and anxiety take over, your bad moment turns into a bad season. And if you give up or if you falter now at the worst of it, it'll all be for nothing and you'll just have the worst years. And you're better than that. You're stronger than that. So, sounds like you're in it right now. Keep going. Even if it's slow, even if it's messy, keep going. Even if it's a crawl, it's a grind, inch forward if you have to, because it's right there at the edge between pushing forward and giving up. In my experience, that moment where everyone would understand why you gave up, but you push forward a little bit more, where everything shifts, where the noise gets quiet, where the veil gets thin. And that's where you find God in your struggle. I've noticed a theme that seems to be prevalent among my listeners and among a lot of the questions that I get over the past few months. And frankly, my friends who I talk to. Um, and it feels like everybody is just, as they used to say, f- like they're holding on in quiet desperation. And I got to tell you, I felt that. I felt that a lot over my time. And I just want to say this: there is a real connection between your consciousness and spirituality that is very scientific. I was watching something on, I think it might have been YouTube, I don't know, but it was a scientist and he was talking about photons and electrons. And he said that photons normally act like waves until you interact with it. Once it is observed, once you shine a light on a photon, it changes and starts to act like a particle. So photons change based on interaction. And same with life, right? You're not seeing the world, the data of the world as it truly is. You are seeing the data of this world through the lens of your own interaction and the interpretation you are giving the data of the world. So your attention shapes experience. I don't think there has ever been a time in my life where everything was going good. And similarly, I've never had a time in my life where everything was going bad. So you have a choice on what you interact with, which data you interact with. What you focus on becomes your reality. So if you focus on fear and all the bad, if you focus on what you're afraid of, this world is going to feel very threatening. But if you focus on the things that you're grateful for, that same world suddenly becomes a world of meaning. And so I have found that spiritually, this shows up as Where your attention goes, your life follows, or as God has said, seek and ye shall find. Not because you changed the photons, but because you changed your focus and your interaction. So today, I would leave you by saying choose today to focus on your blessings. Choose today to focus on the good things in your life and choose today to focus on what's right. Do the right thing because it's the right thing. Thank you for the questions, friends. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.